Archaeology is a weapon of faith in the arsenal of proving to this modern scientific world that the stories in the Bible are real.
Most people think the timeline of history is set in stone. But beneath the red dust of Armenia, something impossible was waiting. Ground-penetrating radar started screaming alerts over the ancient ruins of Artaxata. The sensors detected an anomaly that shouldn't exist, an octagonal structure buried for 1,700 years under layers of destruction and time. This wasn't just a wall or broken pottery. This was architecture that predates official Christianity by decades. When archaeologists finally broke ground, they didn't just find a building. They found a link to a past that was supposed to be erased. The archaeological team thought they were conducting routine surveys of Artaxata's ruins. This ancient Armenian capital had been picked clean by centuries of looters and weather, but their ground-penetrating radar kept hitting something massive about 12 feet below the surface. The readings made no sense. The structure was perfectly octagonal, 8 sides forming a geometric pattern that screamed intentional design. In ancient architecture, octagons weren't random. They symbolized divine connection, sacred knowledge, resurrection. But here's the problem. This structure was sitting in layers that carbon dating placed centuries before Armenia officially adopted Christianity. When they started excavating, the preservation was incredible. The Persian invasion of 640 AD had buried this site under tons of rubble and ash. What the Persians meant to destroy, they accidentally preserved as a perfect time capsule. The first artifacts they pulled out shattered every expectation. Stone inscriptions in ancient Armenian script, but these examples predated the known development of Armenian writing. Fragments of what appeared to be manuscript storage containers. Evidence of deliberate, careful concealment. The carbon dating results came back, and the team had to run them twice. This octagonal vault wasn't just old, it was impossibly old for a Christian structure in Armenia. The official story says Armenia became the first Christian nation in 301 AD under King Tiridates III. But this building was already ancient by then. The preservation paradox became clear as they dug deeper. The Persian army that swept through Artaxata in 640 AD systematically destroyed every Christian site they could find. Churches, monasteries, libraries, all reduced to ash and rubble. But this octagonal structure was already buried when they arrived. The destruction that was meant to erase Armenian Christianity actually saved its oldest secret. The engineering was sophisticated beyond anything they expected from that time period. Precision-cut stones fitted without mortar. Drainage systems that still functioned after 17 centuries. A design that suggested this wasn't just a building, it was a vault, meant to protect something extremely valuable. And get this, the shape itself told a story. 8 sides weren't accidental. In early Christian mysticism, the octagon represented the 8th day of creation, the day of resurrection, the bridge between earthly and divine knowledge. But who was building Christian sacred geometry before Christianity was even legal in the region? The artifacts inside suggested this wasn't just a church or monastery. The stone containers were designed for manuscript storage. The inscriptions reference texts and practices that don't appear in any official Christian records. This was a library, a repository, a place where dangerous knowledge was hidden from the world above. The crazy part is what this discovery means for everything we thought we knew about Armenian Christianity. The official conversion story, King Tiridates, Gregory the Illuminator, the dramatic transformation of 301 AD that might just be when Christianity went public. But this octagonal vault proves there were already Christian communities operating in secret, preserving texts and practices that the later Orthodox Church would try to eliminate. They didn't just find an old building, they found evidence of a hidden Christian network that predates the official story by decades.
news articles, I saw like a corner of this, but not the whole thing.
Really, this is the first time publicly.
To understand why this octagonal vault matters, you need to know the official story of Armenian Christianity, and it's a wild one. The year is 301 AD. King Tiridates III is running Armenia, caught between two superpowers, Rome to the west, Persia to the east. Tiridates has been persecuting Christians for years, following the Roman playbook of stamping out this new religion wherever it pops up. Enter Gregory the Illuminator. This guy was the son of a man who assassinated Tiridates' father. But instead of seeking revenge, Gregory becomes a Christian missionary and actually tries to convert the king who should hate him most. Tiridates responds exactly how you'd expect. He throws Gregory into a pit called Kor Virap and leaves him there for 13 years. Here's where the story gets crazy. Tiridates starts having visions, nightmares, episodes that drive him to the edge of madness. His advisors are desperate. They try everything: priests, healers, magic. Nothing works. Finally, someone suggests the one person they haven't tried, the Christian they've been torturing in a pit for over a decade. They drag Gregory out of Kor Virap, barely alive after 13 years underground. But instead of cursing the king, Gregory heals him. The transformation is instant and complete. Tiridates doesn't just recover, he converts. And when the king of Armenia converts, the entire nation follows. Armenia becomes the first country in history to officially adopt Christianity as its state religion. This is 301 AD, 12 years before Constantine's Edict of Milan makes Christianity legal in Rome. Armenia beats the Roman Empire to the punch. The political stakes were massive. Rome and Persia had been using Armenia as their battlefield for centuries. By choosing Christianity, Tiridates was essentially picking a side, aligning Armenia with the growing Christian movement that would soon dominate the Roman Empire. It was a brilliant political move, disguised as a religious awakening. But here's what the octagonal vault changes about this story. The official conversion of 301 AD might not have been the beginning of Armenian Christianity. It might have been the moment it came out of hiding. Think about it. You don't build sophisticated Christian sacred geometry overnight. The octagonal structure they found beneath Artaxata shows architectural knowledge, theological understanding, and community organization that takes generations to develop. The inscriptions, the manuscript storage, the careful preservation methods, this wasn't the work of new converts figuring things out as they went. This was an established Christian community that had been operating in secret for decades, maybe longer. They had their own texts, their own practices, their own understanding of Christian doctrine that might have been very different from what became Orthodox Christianity. The vault proves that when Gregory converted Tiridates, he wasn't introducing Christianity to Armenia. He was revealing a Christian network that was already there, already organized, already preserving dangerous knowledge in hidden octagonal chambers beneath the capital city. The official story of 301 AD isn't wrong, it's incomplete. Armenia didn't become Christian that year. Armenia stopped hiding that it was already Christian. And that changes everything we thought we knew about early Christianity in the region. When the archaeological team finally cleared away 17 centuries of debris, what they found wasn't just impressive, it was impossible. The octagonal vault beneath Artaxata displayed engineering sophistication that shouldn't have existed in 3rd century Armenia. The precision was mind-blowing. Each of the 8 walls measured exactly 12 feet in length, cut from massive basalt blocks that fitted together without a single drop of mortar. The joints were so tight you couldn't slide a knife blade between them. The floor was a perfect geometric pattern, an 8-pointed star inscribed within the octagon, each point aligned with astronomical precision to cardinal and intercardinal directions. But here's what made the archaeologists' jaws drop: the drainage system. After 1700 years buried under Persian destruction, the vault was completely dry. Ancient Armenian engineers had built a sophisticated water management system using principles that wouldn't be rediscovered in Europe for another 1,000 years. Hidden channels carved into the foundation directed groundwater away from the chamber, protecting whatever was stored inside. The symbolic power of this 8-sided structure can't be overstated. In early Christian mysticism, the octagon wasn't just decorative, it was sacred geometry with deep theological meaning. 8 represented resurrection, the 8th day of creation, the bridge between earthly time and eternal existence. Christian baptisteries across the early church were built as octagons for exactly this reason. But this Armenian octagon came first, while other early Christian sites like the Lateran Baptistery in Rome or San Vitale in Ravenna became famous for their octagonal architecture. Those were built centuries later. The Artaxata vault predates them all, suggesting that Armenian Christians weren't following architectural trends, they were setting them. The evidence of deliberate concealment was everywhere. The entrance wasn't a grand doorway. It was a narrow passage hidden behind a false wall, accessible only through a series of underground tunnels that connected to other parts of the ancient city. This wasn't meant to be found. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide this chamber from the world above. Inside, they found stone containers specifically designed for manuscript storage. These weren't simple boxes. They were engineered preservation systems. Each container had a fitted lid with channels carved around the edges, designed to create an airtight seal. The interior surfaces were coated with a resin that modern analysis revealed was a sophisticated preservation compound, protecting whatever documents were stored inside from moisture, insects, and decay. The inscriptions told their own story. Carved directly into the vault's walls were texts in ancient Armenian script, but these examples were older than any previously known Armenian writing. The language was archaic. The letter forms primitive compared to later Armenian manuscripts. Some passages appeared to be biblical verses, but others reference texts that don't exist in any known Christian canon. One inscription, carved prominently above what appeared to be the main storage area, roughly translated to, "Here lies the true word, preserved for those who seek." Another read, "What is hidden shall be revealed when the time of concealment ends." These weren't casual religious sentiments. They were declarations of purpose, statements of mission. The vault's design suggested it held something extremely valuable and dangerous. The multiple security measures, the hidden entrance, the sophisticated preservation systems, all of this pointed to documents or artifacts that someone desperately wanted to protect and someone else desperately wanted to destroy. The crazy part is that this level of organization, this architectural sophistication, this theological understanding, none of it happens overnight. The octagonal vault represents decades, maybe generations, of Christian community development operating completely underground in pre-conversion Armenia. They weren't just hiding from Roman persecution. They were preserving something specific, something that later Orthodox Christianity would try to eliminate from history. Fast forward to 640 AD. The octagonal vault has been hidden beneath Artaxata for over 3 centuries, protecting its secrets through the rise and fall of kings, the official conversion of Armenia, and the establishment of the Armenian Apostolic Church. But now, a new threat is marching across the landscape, one that will accidentally preserve what it's trying to destroy. The Persian Sassanid Empire, under the command of General Razman, sweeps into Armenia with a specific mission. This isn't just conquest, it's systematic cultural annihilation. The Persians have watched Christianity spread across Armenia for centuries, and they've decided it's time to cut the problem off at its roots. Artaxata, as the ancient capital and symbolic heart of Armenian Christianity, becomes target number one. But the Persians aren't just burning buildings, they're erasing memory. Every church, every monastery, every Christian library gets the same treatment: total destruction, then burial under tons of rubble to ensure nothing can be recovered. The archaeological evidence tells the story of those final days. Layers of ash and burned timber mark the systematic destruction. Scattered fragments of Christian artifacts, crosses, manuscript pages, church ornaments, all deliberately broken and scattered. The Persians weren't just destroying buildings. They were destroying the physical evidence that Christianity had ever existed in Armenia. But here's the irony that would echo through history. The octagonal vault was already hidden when the Persians arrived. The Christian community that built it had long since passed into legend. The entrance tunnels had been sealed. The chamber had become a forgotten secret buried beneath the city. When the Persian army reduced Artaxata to rubble, they unknowingly created the perfect preservation system. Tons of stone, ash, and debris crashed down over the hidden vault, sealing it in an oxygen-free environment that would protect its contents for the next 1,400 years. The destruction meant to erase Armenian Christianity actually saved its oldest evidence. The archaeological team found proof of hasty concealment in the final layers before Persian destruction. Christian artifacts buried in shallow pits, manuscript fragments hidden in wall cavities, evidence that the Armenian Christian community knew what was coming and tried desperately to save what they could. But they couldn't save everything. The Persians were thorough. Church records, theological libraries, historical documents. Centuries of Armenian Christian scholarship went up in flames. The official history of early Armenian Christianity was largely erased, leaving gaps that historians have struggled to fill ever since. What the vault's contents reveal fills some of those gaps in shocking ways. The preserved manuscripts show that early Armenian Christianity was far more diverse than later Orthodox accounts suggest. Different theological interpretations, alternative gospel texts, practices that would later be declared heretical, all preserved in that octagonal chamber, while the official church above ground developed along different lines. The missing pieces of Armenian Christian history weren't just lost, they were deliberately suppressed. The Persian destruction gave later Orthodox authorities the perfect excuse to rewrite the narrative. Sorry all the early records were destroyed by the Persians. But the octagonal vault proves that some records survived, hidden away by Christians who knew their version of the faith might not survive the coming orthodoxy. The crazy part is how this connects to other archaeological discoveries across the region. Similar hidden chambers have been found beneath early Christian sites in Syria, Turkey, and Georgia. All show the same pattern: sophisticated preservation systems, alternative Christian texts, evidence of theological diversity that official church history claims never existed. The Persians thought they were erasing Armenian Christianity. Instead, they created a time capsule that would eventually prove the early church was far more complex, diverse, and controversial than anyone imagined. The destruction that was supposed to end the story actually preserved the most important chapter. When modern imaging technology finally revealed what was written on those damaged manuscript fragments, the implications hit the archaeological world like a bombshell. These weren't just any Christian texts. They were writings that had been systematically erased from official church history. Fragment analysis revealed non-canonical gospels, alternative accounts of Christ's teachings that differed dramatically from the four gospels that made it into the Bible. One partially preserved text described Jesus delivering teachings about the nature of divine knowledge that sound nothing like traditional Christian doctrine. Another fragment contained what appeared to be instructions for mystical practices that the later Orthodox Church would condemn as heretical. The theological implications were staggering. These texts showed that early Armenian Christianity wasn't the unified, orthodox faith that church historians claimed. There were competing interpretations, alternative theologies, entirely different ways of understanding what it meant to be Christian. The diversity of thought was incredible and dangerous. Here's why these texts disappeared from official history. When Christianity became the state religion of Armenia in 301 AD, and later when it spread across the Roman Empire, church authorities needed unity. Competing gospels, alternative interpretations, mystical practices, all of that theological diversity became a threat to institutional power. The solution was simple: declare one version orthodox and eliminate the rest. But the Armenian Christians who built that octagonal vault saw this coming. They knew their version of Christianity might not survive the coming orthodoxy, so they preserved it, hidden beneath the capital city, waiting for a time when the world might be ready for the full complexity of early Christian thought. Modern technology revealed texts that had been invisible for centuries. Multispectral imaging pulled words from manuscripts so damaged they appeared blank to the naked eye. What they found were theological discussions, debates about the nature of Christ, interpretations of his teachings that would have gotten their authors executed in later centuries. The Vatican's response to these findings has been carefully diplomatic. Official statements acknowledge the historical significance of the discovery while emphasizing that these texts don't change core Christian doctrine. But behind closed doors, church historians are scrambling to understand what this means for the official narrative they've maintained for over 1,000 years. The crazy part is how this discovery connects to similar finds across other early Christian sites. Hidden chambers in Syria containing alternative gospels, buried libraries in Egypt preserving mystical Christian texts, secret repositories across the early Christian world, all showing the same pattern: theological diversity that official history claims never existed. What the octagonal vault proves is that early Christianity wasn't the unified movement that later authorities claimed. It was a complex, diverse, sometimes contradictory collection of communities, each preserving their own understanding of what Christ's message actually meant. This octagonal vault beneath Artaxata proves that Armenian Christianity has roots far deeper and more complex than anyone imagined. The structure represents a bridge between ancient wisdom and new faith, preserved by the very destruction meant to erase it. What other secrets lie buried beneath the dust of forgotten cities, waiting to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the past?